Hey, Daily Dosers, Chris here. Happy Monday to you. Man, it is that time of year where everything is flying by. So much is on the plate. So much is on our agenda. I can't believe you've taken these moments just to spend a couple minutes with us. But thank you for doing that. I want today to leave you with one simple thought. And yet, it could become incredibly complex to carry out in our life. We talked this week in the very last chapter in the book of John about Peter walking with Jesus. After 3 years of knowing Jesus, 3 years of living with him, 3 years of the miracles, 3 years of hearing the teaching, it still didn't connect. Peter and the disciples went back to their old job and they came up empty. Not that their old job was wrong. They didn't turn their backs on Jesus. They just came up empty. They stopped remaining. And apart from him, they could do nothing. They came up empty. And Jesus walks with Peter and says, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? I'm calling you to a task and a purpose. And we ended our message this weekend looking at that. The Christian life stops and or starts with simply a walk in grace. It's not our knowledge of Jesus. It's not a feeling about Jesus. Do we daily practice the presence and walk in grace and allow his life to work? That's what transformation is, his work in us. And I love the way in Galatians, the Apostle Paul writes the church of Galatia. Now, Galatia is just up to the north, to the west of Israel. When Israel was dispersed because of the persecution, a lot of Jewish people ended up. Galatia isn't a city, it's a region. So a lot of Jewish people lived up there. And a lot of Christians are carrying their old Jewish law still with them. A lot of Christians are trying to do religion to get themselves right with Jesus. Does that sound familiar? A lot of Christians think, I know this new year I got to read more. I should probably give more. I should probably attend more. I should probably be in a life group. Wrong. I think those are all amazing things, but that's not what gets your Christian life going. It was Jesus walking with Peter and showing him how to walk in grace. And Paul is doing the same thing to the Christians in Galatia that are still trying to be religious. And he explains it using his own life. In Galatians 2:20, he says this, I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but it's Christ that lives in me. And the crowd's like, well, what do you mean you were crucified? You were on the cross? No. I'm not talking physically, but I died with Christ. My old self is gone. I know I still live, but it's not me living this life. It's Christ in me. And the life I live in this body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. My life is daily now a faith walk with Jesus in me. Maybe you've heard that before. That's Christ in you. But then he explains it this way. I do not set aside the grace of God, for if righteousness, or think of it as the law or religion, could be gained through the law, Christ died for nothing. He goes, look, if I don't walk in grace, then I'm going to walk in religion. I'm going to walk in all the do's and don'ts. And if I'm walking in all the do's and don'ts, that means Christ died for nothing. Because I could have been right just with living a better life, all the do's and don'ts. It is not religion, the do's and don'ts, that gives the life of Christ in us. He goes, it's walking in grace. That's why I won't set grace aside. I walk in that daily. You foolish Galatians. Oh, we get strong here. Who has bewitched you? Christian. Why are you acting like a fool? Who brainwashed you? Before your very eyes, Jesus Christ was clearly portrayed as crucified. I would like to learn just one thing from you. Did you receive the Spirit by observing the law or by believing what you heard? Are you so foolish? After beginning with the Spirit, are you now trying to obtain your goal by human effort? Here's your thought. Christian, daily walking in a life of grace, that is Christ. It's not religion. It's not the do's and don'ts. If we were going to be better Christians by religion, then Jesus died for nothing. He just said, no, obey the book, work harder. He goes, you foolish people, you accepted Christ simply by faith in him. Now you're going about trying to work your life for him. Allow his life to work in you. Don't set aside grace, that constant walk in the freedom that Christ gives. Because he died for me, he raised from the dead for me, his life is in me. We walk every day holding on to the reality that I'm freed from my past, I'm freed from my current, I'm freed from my future, that we're invited to walk with him. It is practicing that presence that brings about a Christ-like life because it's Christ in us. May you practice and simply walk in grace this week. That's Christmas.